Question 1. Process analysis reveals that LG Electronics is considering a new initiative to analyze customer usage patterns of its smart home devices to identify potential areas for product improvement. What is the most compliant and ethically sound approach for LG Electronics to undertake this analysis while safeguarding customer privacy? Option A. Analyze raw, identifiable customer usage data directly to gain the most granular insights for product development. Option B. Share raw customer usage data with third-party analytics firms for analysis, relying on their internal privacy policies. Option C. Implement robust data anonymization and aggregation techniques to analyze usage patterns without identifying individual customers. Option D. Use customer usage data for product improvement without conducting a formal privacy impact assessment, assuming it is for internal business purposes only. The correct answer is A. Analyze raw, identifiable customer usage data directly to gain the most granular insights for product development. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for LG Electronics employees regarding the ethical and regulatory handling of sensitive customer data. The challenge lies in balancing the company's need for data analysis to improve products and services with the paramount obligation to protect customer privacy and comply with data protection laws. Mismanagement of this data can lead to severe reputational damage, significant financial penalties, and erosion of customer trust. Careful judgment is required to ensure all data handling practices are transparent, secure, and legally compliant. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves implementing robust data anonymization and aggregation techniques before any analysis is conducted. This aligns with the principles of data minimization and purpose limitation often found in data protection regulations. By anonymizing data, personal identifiers are removed or obscured, significantly reducing the risk of individual identification. Aggregation further protects privacy by presenting data in a summarized form, making it impossible to link back to specific individuals. This approach ensures that LG Electronics can gain valuable insights without compromising customer privacy, thereby adhering to regulatory requirements and ethical standards. Incorrect approaches analysis. An approach that involves analyzing raw, identifiable customer data without explicit consent for such analysis is a direct violation of data protection principles. This failure to anonymize or aggregate data exposes individuals to privacy risks and contravenes regulations that mandate secure and lawful processing of personal information. Another incorrect approach would be to rely solely on internal company policies without verifying their alignment with current regulatory frameworks. While internal policies are important, they must be grounded in and compliant with external legal obligations. A policy that permits the sharing of identifiable customer data with third parties for marketing purposes without proper consent or anonymization is a significant regulatory and ethical breach. Finally, an approach that prioritizes business objectives over data privacy, such as using customer data for product development without considering the potential privacy implications or regulatory constraints, is fundamentally flawed. This demonstrates a disregard for the legal and ethical responsibilities LG Electronics has towards its customers. Professional reasoning. Professionals at LG Electronics should adopt a data governance framework that prioritizes privacy by design and by default. This involves conducting data protection impact assessments (DPIA) for any new data processing activities, ensuring clear and transparent privacy notices are provided to customers, and obtaining explicit consent where required. When analyzing customer data, the default should always be to use anonymized or aggregated data. If identifiable data is absolutely necessary for a specific, legitimate purpose, then strict access controls, security measures, and a clear justification for its use must be documented and approved. Continuous training on data protection regulations and ethical data handling practices is also crucial for all employees. Question 2. Performance analysis shows that LG Electronics has collected customer data from users in both the United States and the European Union. To ensure regulatory compliance for its data handling practices, which of the following approaches best reflects LG Electronics' obligation? Option A. Adhere to the data privacy regulations of the country where LG Electronics headquarters are located, assuming this is the most efficient approach. Option B. Conduct a case-by-case analysis for each individual customer's data, applying the least stringent regulation to minimize operational complexity. Option C. Implement data privacy practices that comply with the stricter of the two regulatory frameworks, US or EU, to ensure the highest level of protection. Option D. Apply the data privacy regulations of the United States, as it is a major market for LG Electronics products. The correct answer is A. Adhere to the data privacy regulations of the country where LG Electronics headquarters are located, assuming this is the most efficient approach. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because LG Electronics, as a global entity, must navigate varying regulatory landscapes. The core difficulty lies in ensuring that internal policies and employee conduct align with the specific legal and ethical frameworks of the jurisdictions in which they operate, particularly concerning data privacy and consumer protection. A failure to do so can lead to significant legal penalties, reputational damage, and loss of consumer trust. Careful judgment is required to identify and apply the most stringent applicable regulations when a conflict arises, prioritizing the protection of individuals and compliance with the law. The correct approach involves proactively identifying and adhering to the most stringent data privacy regulations applicable to LG Electronics operations in any given jurisdiction. This means understanding that if LG Electronics collects data from consumers in the European Union, it must comply with the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, even if its headquarters are elsewhere. This approach is correct because it prioritizes the highest standard of data protection and consumer rights, thereby minimizing legal risk and upholding ethical business practices. It demonstrates a commitment to responsible data handling that transcends minimum compliance in less regulated areas. An incorrect approach would be to assume that compliance with the laws of the company's primary place of business is sufficient. This fails to acknowledge the extraterritorial reach of many modern data privacy laws, such as GDPR, which apply to any entity processing the personal data of EU residents, regardless of the entity's location. This approach risks significant legal penalties and reputational damage due to noncompliance. Another incorrect approach would be to apply the least stringent regulations across all operations. This is ethically unsound and legally perilous, as it would expose LG Electronics to violations in jurisdictions with higher standards. It prioritizes cost-saving or administrative ease over legal and ethical obligations, which is unacceptable in regulated industries. Finally, an incorrect approach would be to ignore potential conflicts between regulations and hope for the best. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for legal and ethical responsibilities. It creates a high probability of unintentional noncompliance, leading to severe consequences. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of all applicable legal and regulatory frameworks, a risk assessment to identify potential conflicts, and a commitment to adopting the highest standard of compliance when such conflicts arise. This proactive and principle-based approach ensures that LG Electronics operates ethically and legally across all its global activities. Question 3. Stakeholder feedback indicates that LG Electronics marketing department is requesting access to detailed customer purchasing patterns and demographic information for targeted advertising campaigns, which may involve sharing this data with external marketing agencies. What is the most compliant and ethically sound approach for LG Electronics to fulfill this request while safeguarding customer privacy? Option A. Share raw customer purchasing patterns and demographic information with external marketing agencies after obtaining general consent for marketing communications. Option B. Prioritize the marketing department's request for detailed customer data to maximize campaign effectiveness, assuming that external agencies have their own data protection protocols. Option C. Share aggregated customer data with external marketing agencies, ensuring the aggregation level is sufficient for broad market analysis, but may still allow for potential re-identification of individuals in specific contexts. Option D. Implement robust data anonymization and aggregation techniques to derive market insights before sharing any derived information with third-party marketing agencies. The correct answer is D. Implement robust data anonymization and aggregation techniques to derive market insights before sharing any derived information with third-party marketing agencies. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because LG Electronics, as a global entity, must navigate varying regulatory landscapes while maintaining a consistent ethical standard. The core challenge lies in balancing the need for efficient data processing and market analysis with the stringent data privacy requirements mandated by regulations like the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, if operating within the EU or similar frameworks in other jurisdictions. A failure to comply can lead to significant financial penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any data processing activities are not only legally permissible, but also ethically sound, respecting individual privacy rights. The correct approach involves implementing robust data anonymization and aggregation techniques before sharing any insights derived from customer data with third-party marketing agencies. This method ensures that individual customer identities are protected, thereby adhering to privacy principles. Specifically, it aligns with regulatory requirements that mandate the protection of personal data and limit its processing to necessary and proportionate purposes. By anonymizing and aggregating data, LG Electronics can still gain valuable market insights without exposing sensitive customer information, thus fulfilling its obligations under data protection laws and ethical guidelines. An approach that involves sharing raw customer data with third-party marketing agencies without explicit consent or adequate anonymization is ethically and regulatorily unacceptable. This directly violates data privacy principles, as it exposes personal information to unauthorized access or misuse, potentially leading to breaches of confidentiality and trust. Such an action would contravene regulations that require informed consent for data processing and impose strict controls on data sharing. Another incorrect approach, sharing aggregated data that still allows for the re-identification of individuals, also presents significant regulatory and ethical risks. While aggregation is a step towards privacy protection, if the aggregation is not sufficiently robust, it can still inadvertently reveal personal information, especially when combined with other data sources. This falls short of the stringent standards required for true anonymization and could still be considered a breach of data privacy regulations. Finally, an approach that prioritizes immediate marketing gains over data privacy concerns, by disregarding potential privacy implications of data sharing, is fundamentally flawed. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the legal and ethical obligations LG Electronics has towards its customers. It prioritizes business objectives over fundamental rights, which is a direct contravention of responsible corporate conduct and regulatory expectations. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a multifaceted risk assessment. This includes identifying all relevant data privacy regulations applicable to the jurisdictions in which LG Electronics operates. It requires a thorough understanding of the data being processed, the purpose of its use, and the potential risks associated with its sharing or processing. Implementing a privacy-by-design framework, where privacy considerations are integrated into all business processes from the outset, is crucial. Furthermore, seeking legal counsel and consulting with data protection officers to ensure compliance and ethical conduct is paramount. Regular training for employees on data privacy, best practices, and the establishment of clear internal policies and procedures for data handling are also essential components of responsible data management. Question 4. Operational review demonstrates that a recent batch of LG Electronics hiring assessment tests for a critical engineering role has revealed a pattern where candidates with extensive prior experience in a niche, but highly relevant, technology are consistently scoring below the expected threshold on a specific technical aptitude section. The hiring manager is concerned about potentially overlooking highly qualified individuals due to the section's perceived inflexibility and is considering recommending a pass for these candidates based on their overall experience, bypassing the standard scoring rubric for that particular section. Option A. Propose that LG Electronics create a separate, informal assessment for candidates with extensive niche experience, allowing them to bypass the standard technical aptitude section of the LG Electronics hiring assessment test without formal approval or documentation of the deviation. Option B. Suggests that the hiring manager subjectively assess the candidate's experience and grant them a pass on the technical aptitude section if their prior work history appears sufficiently impressive, even if it deviates from the established scoring criteria. Option C. Recommend a review of the specific technical aptitude section of the LG Electronics hiring assessment test to determine if it accurately measures the required competencies for the role, and if necessary, propose revisions in line with the LG Electronics hiring assessment test's regulatory framework and relevant jurisdictional guidelines. Option D. Advise the hiring manager to proceed with passing candidates who demonstrate strong overall experience, regardless of their scores on the specific technical aptitude section, to expedite the hiring process. The correct answer is C. Recommend a review of the specific technical aptitude section of the LG Electronics hiring assessment test to determine if it accurately measures the required competencies for the role, and if necessary, propose revisions in line with the LG Electronics hiring assessment test's regulatory framework and relevant jurisdictional guidelines. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for LG Electronics compliance team due to the potential for misinterpreting or selectively applying internal policies in a way that conflicts with the spirit, if not the letter, of the LG Electronics hiring assessment test's regulatory framework. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need for efficient hiring with the imperative to uphold the integrity of the assessment process and ensure fair treatment of all candidates. Careful judgment is required to avoid creating a perception of bias or circumventing established assessment protocols. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the LG Electronics hiring assessment test's specific guidelines and the relevant regulatory framework governing hiring assessments within the specified jurisdiction. This approach prioritizes adherence to the established rules, ensuring that any modifications or interpretations are explicitly permitted and documented. The regulatory justification stems from the principle of procedural fairness and the need to maintain the validity and reliability of the assessment. By strictly following the specified framework, LG Electronics upholds its commitment to a transparent and equitable hiring process, minimizing the risk of legal challenges or reputational damage. An incorrect approach that involves prioritizing expediency over strict adherence to the assessment framework would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for the established protocols designed to ensure fairness and prevent bias. Such an approach could lead to accusations of discriminatory practices or the use of invalid assessment methods, directly contravening the principles of regulatory compliance. Another incorrect approach, which involves making subjective judgments about candidate suitability without a clear basis in the assessment framework, is also professionally unsound. This introduces an element of personal bias and undermines the objective nature of the hiring assessment. The regulatory failure here lies in the potential for inconsistent application of standards and the inability to demonstrate a defensible rationale for hiring decisions, which is crucial for compliance. Finally, an approach that seeks to interpret the assessment guidelines in a way that benefits certain candidates or streamlines the process without explicit authorization from the regulatory framework is a significant ethical and regulatory lapse. This can be seen as an attempt to circumvent the established rules, leading to a compromised assessment process and potential legal repercussions. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a multi-step approach. 1. Identify the specific regulatory framework and internal policies governing the situation. 2. Analyze the operational review findings against these established guidelines. 3. Consult with legal and compliance departments to ensure accurate interpretation and application of rules. 4. Prioritize adherence to the letter and spirit of the regulations, even if it requires more time or resources. 5. Document all decisions and justifications thoroughly. 6. If ambiguity exists, err on the side of caution and seek clarification or approval before proceeding. Question 5. Process analysis reveals that LG Electronics is exploring methods to enhance its product development cycle by analyzing customer usage data from its smart appliances. To what extent can LG Electronics collect and utilize this data for product improvement, strictly adhering to the regulatory framework governing data privacy and consumer protection within its primary market of operation? Option A. Anonymize all customer usage data before collection and then use it for any internal business purpose, including product improvement, without seeking specific consent. Option B. Utilize customer usage data for product improvement without explicit consent, assuming that the terms of service implicitly grant permission for such analysis. Option C. Collect all available usage data from smart appliances without explicit customer consent, as this data is essential for competitive product development. Option D. Collect data only after obtaining explicit, informed consent from customers for product improvement purposes, ensuring data is anonymized where feasible and used strictly for the stated purpose. Correct answer is D. Collect data only after obtaining explicit, informed consent from customers for product improvement purposes, ensuring data is anonymized where feasible and used strictly for the stated purpose. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for LG Electronics employees due to the inherent conflict between business objectives and regulatory compliance, particularly concerning data privacy and consumer protection. The need to leverage customer data for product improvement must be balanced against strict adherence to data handling regulations. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any data analysis or utilization undertaken by LG Electronics is conducted ethically and legally, safeguarding consumer trust and avoiding significant penalties. The correct approach involves a proactive and transparent data governance framework that prioritizes obtaining explicit consent for data collection and usage, anonymizing data where possible, and ensuring all data processing activities align with the specified regulatory framework. This approach is professionally sound because it directly addresses the core tenets of data privacy regulations, which mandate informed consent, purpose limitation, and data minimization. By adhering to these principles, LG Electronics demonstrates a commitment to ethical business practices and regulatory compliance, thereby mitigating legal risks and fostering customer confidence. An approach that involves collecting and analyzing customer data without explicit consent for the stated purpose fails to meet the fundamental requirements of data privacy laws. This constitutes a significant regulatory failure, as it violates principles of informed consent and potentially unauthorized data processing. Another incorrect approach, which involves anonymizing data but not obtaining consent for its initial collection, is also problematic. While anonymization can reduce privacy risks, it does not negate the need for lawful basis for data collection in the first place. Furthermore, relying solely on anonymization without considering the broader regulatory landscape regarding data processing activities can lead to noncompliance. A third incorrect approach, which focuses on using data solely for internal product improvement without considering the potential for re-identification or secondary uses that might not have been consented to, also presents regulatory risks. This overlooks the principle of purpose limitation, where data collected for one purpose should not be used for another without proper authorization. Professionals at LG Electronics should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the applicable regulatory framework. This involves identifying all relevant data privacy laws and guidelines. Subsequently, they should assess the proposed data usage against these regulations, focusing on consent mechanisms, data minimization, purpose limitation, and security measures. If any ambiguity exists, seeking legal counsel or consulting with the company's compliance department is crucial. The decision-making process should always err on the side of caution, prioritizing compliance and ethical considerations over immediate business gains. Question 6. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of a data breach involving sensitive customer information collected by LG Electronics during product registration. Given this, which of the following approaches best aligns with regulatory compliance and ethical data handling practices for LG Electronics? Option A. Continue current data handling practices, assuming the likelihood of a breach is manageable and relying on existing general security protocols. Option B. Focus solely on strengthening external cybersecurity measures without re-evaluating internal data access controls and data minimization strategies. Option C. Implement enhanced data anonymization and aggregation techniques for all customer data used in product development and market analysis, ensuring no individual can be identified. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive review of all data collection and processing activities, seeking explicit, granular consent from all customers for every potential use of their data, even if it impacts user experience. The correct answer is C. Implement enhanced data anonymization and aggregation techniques for all customer data used in product development and market analysis, ensuring no individual can be identified. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because LG Electronics, as a global entity, must navigate a complex web of regulatory requirements and ethical considerations when handling customer data. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need for data utilization to improve products and services with the imperative to protect customer privacy and comply with data protection laws. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any data processing activities are transparent, lawful, and respect individual rights, particularly in the context of potential data breaches or misuse. The correct approach involves LG Electronics implementing robust data anonymization and aggregation techniques before utilizing customer data for product development insights. This method is correct because it directly addresses the regulatory requirement to protect personal data. By anonymizing and aggregating data, LG Electronics can extract valuable trends and insights without identifying individual customers, thereby minimizing the risk of privacy violations and non-compliance with data protection regulations. This aligns with the principle of data minimization and purpose limitation, ensuring that data is used only for specified, legitimate purposes and in a way that does not compromise individual privacy. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with analyzing raw, identifiable customer data without explicit consent for such broad usage. This is professionally unacceptable because it directly violates data protection principles, potentially breaching regulations that mandate consent for data processing and prohibit the use of personal data for purposes beyond those for which it was collected. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the identified risks and continue with current data handling practices without implementing any new safeguards. This is ethically and regulatorily unsound, as it demonstrates a disregard for customer privacy and a failure to adapt to evolving compliance landscapes, leaving LG Electronics exposed to significant legal penalties and reputational damage. A further incorrect approach would be to solely rely on internal policies without cross-referencing them against current applicable data protection laws, as internal policies may not be sufficiently stringent or up-to-date with legal mandates. Professionals should employ a risk-based approach to data handling. This involves proactively identifying potential data privacy risks, assessing their likelihood and impact, and then implementing appropriate controls. This framework requires a thorough understanding of relevant data protection laws, a commitment to ethical data stewardship, and a willingness to invest in technologies and processes that safeguard customer information. When faced with such a scenario, the decision-making process should prioritize compliance, transparency, and the protection of individual rights, ensuring that business objectives are pursued responsibly. Question 7. Cost-benefit analysis shows that implementing a new AI-driven feature for LG Electronics smart appliances could significantly reduce operational costs and enhance user experience through personalized settings. However, this feature requires the collection of granular user behavior data, which, while anonymized, could potentially be re-identified under certain circumstances. The development team proposes proceeding with the feature, citing the anonymization process and the potential for competitive advantage, with a minimal update to the existing privacy policy. What is the most appropriate course of action for LG Electronics Compliance Department? Option A. Conduct a thorough data protection impact assessment, DPIA, to identify and mitigate all potential privacy risks, ensuring transparency and obtaining explicit user consent for the specific data collection and usage, even if it requires additional development time and resources. Option B. Implement the feature with a broad, general privacy statement that covers a wide range of data processing activities, assuming users will understand and accept the terms. Option C. Proceed with the feature as planned, relying on the anonymization process and a minor update to the privacy policy, as the potential cost savings and competitive advantage outweigh the low probability of re-identification. Option D. Delay the feature's launch indefinitely until absolute certainty regarding the impossibility of data re-identification can be achieved, prioritizing risk avoidance over market opportunity. The correct answer is A. Conduct a thorough data protection impact assessment, DPIA, to identify and mitigate all potential privacy risks, ensuring transparency and obtaining explicit user consent for the specific data collection and usage, even if it requires additional development time and resources. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for LG Electronics compliance team, as they navigate the ethical and regulatory implications of a new product feature. The core difficulty lies in balancing potential market advantage and cost savings against the imperative to uphold consumer trust and adhere to data privacy regulations. A hasty decision without thorough due diligence could lead to significant reputational damage and legal repercussions. The correct approach involves a comprehensive assessment that prioritizes regulatory compliance and consumer welfare above immediate financial gains. This means proactively identifying and mitigating any potential privacy risks associated with the data collection, even if it incurs additional development costs or slightly delays market entry. This aligns with the principles of data protection by design and by default, which are fundamental to many regulatory frameworks governing data privacy. Specifically, it requires a thorough review against relevant data protection laws to ensure all data collection is lawful, fair, transparent, and for specified purposes, with appropriate consent mechanisms in place. An incorrect approach that prioritizes cost savings over privacy risks would fail to adequately address the potential for data misuse or breaches. This could lead to violations of data protection laws, resulting in substantial fines, legal action, and a severe erosion of consumer confidence. Another incorrect approach, which relies on vague or ambiguous privacy notices, would be ethically unsound and likely fall short of regulatory requirements for transparency. Consumers have a right to understand how their data is being used, and obfuscation, even if technically compliant with minimal disclosure, is professionally unacceptable and ethically dubious. Furthermore, an approach that assumes existing but unverified compliance measures are sufficient without a specific review, for the new feature is negligent and exposes LG Electronics to unforeseen risks. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that begins with a clear understanding of the regulatory landscape. This involves identifying all applicable data protection laws and guidelines. Subsequently, a risk assessment should be conducted to pinpoint potential privacy vulnerabilities of the new feature. Mitigation strategies should then be developed, considering both technical and procedural controls. Finally, a cost-benefit analysis should be performed, but crucially, the benefit side must include the cost of noncompliance, fines, reputational damage, and the cost side must include the investment in robust privacy protections. Ethical considerations and consumer trust should be weighted heavily in this analysis, not solely financial metrics. Question 8. Investigation of an LG Electronics product development manager who has learned about a significant, non-public upcoming product feature that is expected to dramatically alter the competitive landscape. The manager's sibling is a senior executive at a direct competitor. The manager is considering whether to subtly hint to their sibling about the upcoming development to help the competitor prepare for the market shift. What is the most appropriate course of action for the LG Electronics product development manager? Option A. Immediately report the potential conflict of interest and the sensitive information to LG Electronics Compliance Department or legal counsel. Option B. Discuss the situation with trusted colleagues within LG Electronics who are not in a position of authority over the product development to gauge their opinions. Option C. Share a vague, non-specific heads-up with their sibling to help them prepare for market changes. Option D. Do nothing, assuming the sibling will not act on any perceived information, and that the relationship is purely personal. The correct answer is A. Immediately report the potential conflict of interest and the sensitive information to LG Electronics Compliance Department or legal counsel. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for an LG Electronics employee regarding potential conflicts of interest and the proper handling of proprietary information. The employee is privy to sensitive, non-public information about a new product launch that could significantly impact the market. The dilemma arises from a personal relationship with someone outside the company who could benefit from this information. Navigating this requires a strong understanding of LG Electronics' internal policies and relevant ethical guidelines to prevent insider trading or unfair competitive advantage, ensuring the integrity of LG Electronics' business practices and market fairness. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves immediately reporting the situation to the designated compliance or legal department within LG Electronics. This demonstrates adherence to the company's code of conduct and ethical policies, which typically mandate disclosure of potential conflicts of interest and the protection of confidential information. By reporting, the employee initiates a formal review process, allowing LG Electronics to manage the risk appropriately, which might involve further investigation, employee guidance, or internal controls to prevent any misuse of information. This proactive disclosure is crucial for maintaining trust and upholding legal and ethical standards. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to do nothing and assume the personal relationship poses no risk. This fails to acknowledge the potential for inadvertent disclosure or the appearance of impropriety, which can still lead to ethical breaches and reputational damage for LG Electronics. It also violates the duty of loyalty and the obligation to act in the best interest of the employer. Another incorrect approach is to share the information with the external contact, even with the intention of it being a favor or just a heads up. This directly contravenes policies against insider trading and the misuse of confidential information. Such an action could lead to severe legal consequences for both the employee and the external party, as well as significant penalties for LG Electronics. A third incorrect approach is to seek advice from colleagues outside of the official compliance channels. While well-intentioned, this can inadvertently spread sensitive information within the company without proper oversight or documentation, potentially creating further risks or misinterpretations. It bypasses the established procedures designed to handle such sensitive matters confidentially and effectively. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such dilemmas should follow a structured decision-making process. First, identify the ethical issue and potential conflicts. Second, consult relevant company policies, codes of conduct, and any applicable regulatory guidelines. Third, seek guidance from the appropriate internal authority, such as the compliance department, legal counsel, or a designated ethics officer. Fourth, act in accordance with the advice received and document all actions taken. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are informed, compliant, and ethically sound, protecting both the individual and the organization. Question 9. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a key supplier for LG Electronics is requesting early access to the upcoming product roadmap for a critical component to finalize pricing and delivery schedules for a large potential order. The employee responsible for this negotiation is under significant pressure to secure this order before the end of the fiscal quarter. The roadmap contains highly confidential information about future product features and launch timelines that, if leaked, could significantly impact LG Electronics' competitive position. What is the most appropriate course of action for the LG Electronics employee? Option A. Share the full product roadmap with the supplier immediately to expedite the negotiation and secure the order, emphasizing the need for discretion. Option B. Decline to share any roadmap information and state that pricing and delivery schedules can only be discussed based on current product specifications and historical data. Option C. Inform the supplier that the roadmap is confidential and cannot be shared, but offer to discuss general market trends and LG Electronics' strategic direction without revealing specific product details. Option D. Provide the supplier with a redacted version of the roadmap, removing all sensitive information about features and launch dates, but including general timelines for component integration. Correct answer is A. Share the full product roadmap with the supplier immediately to expedite the negotiation and secure the order, emphasizing the need for discretion. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for an LG Electronics employee due to the potential conflict between business objectives and ethical conduct, specifically concerning the disclosure of sensitive information. The pressure to meet sales targets can create an environment where employees might be tempted to bend rules or overlook ethical considerations. Careful judgment is required to navigate this situation, ensuring that business interests do not compromise integrity or regulatory compliance. The correct approach involves prioritizing transparency and adherence to LG Electronics' internal policies and relevant regulations regarding the disclosure of product roadmaps. This means refraining from sharing the confidential information with the potential supplier until proper authorization and confidentiality agreements are in place. This approach is ethically sound and legally compliant because it upholds the company's intellectual property rights and prevents unauthorized disclosure of sensitive business strategies. It aligns with principles of corporate governance and the duty of care owed to the employer, ensuring that LG Electronics' competitive advantage is protected. An incorrect approach would be to share the roadmap information with the supplier to expedite the negotiation process. This action would be a breach of confidentiality, potentially violating LG Electronics' internal policies and any non-disclosure agreements, NDA, that may already exist or should be established. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of integrity and trustworthiness. Legally, it could expose LG Electronics to significant risks, including intellectual property theft, competitive disadvantage, and potential litigation from competitors or partners. Another incorrect approach would be to vaguely hint at future product developments without providing specifics, hoping to secure a favorable deal. While seemingly less damaging than outright disclosure, this still carries risks. It can lead to misunderstandings, create unrealistic expectations for the supplier, and still potentially breach confidentiality if the hints are too revealing. It also undermines the principle of clear and honest communication, which is crucial for building strong business relationships. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of company policies on information disclosure and confidentiality. When faced with a request for sensitive information, an employee should 1. Identify the nature of the information requested and its sensitivity. 2. Consult relevant company policies and procedures. 3. If unsure, seek guidance from their manager or the legal/compliance department. 4. Prioritize ethical conduct and regulatory compliance over immediate business gains. 5. Ensure that any information shared is done so through authorized channels and with appropriate safeguards, such as signed NDAs. Question 10. The audit findings indicate that marketing materials for LG Electronics' latest smart refrigerator model may be overstating its energy efficiency ratings, potentially misleading consumers. The sales department is pushing for the audit report to reflect the marketed figures to avoid jeopardizing upcoming sales targets and a significant product launch. What is the most ethically and professionally responsible course of action for the auditor? Option A. Immediately report the potential misrepresentation to external consumer protection agencies without first informing LG Electronics' internal management. Option B. Accept the sales department's assurance that the figures are accurate and proceed with the audit report without further investigation into the energy efficiency claims. Option C. Document the discrepancies accurately in the audit report and escalate the findings to LG Electronics' internal compliance department and relevant senior management for investigation and resolution. Option D. Adjust the audit report to align with the marketing claims to support the sales department's objectives and avoid negative publicity for LG Electronics. The correct answer is C. Document the discrepancies accurately in the audit report and escalate the findings to LG Electronics' internal compliance department and relevant senior management for investigation and resolution. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the conflict between immediate business pressures and the obligation to uphold ethical standards and regulatory compliance. The auditor's discovery of potential misrepresentation of product performance data for LG Electronics' new smart refrigerator line creates a dilemma. The pressure to meet sales targets and avoid negative publicity for LG Electronics clashes with the duty to report accurate findings. Careful judgment is required to navigate these competing interests without compromising integrity or legal obligations. The correct approach involves immediately escalating the findings to the appropriate internal channels within LG Electronics, such as the compliance department or senior management, while also ensuring that the audit report accurately reflects the discovered discrepancies. This approach is right because it adheres to the principles of professional skepticism and due diligence expected of auditors. It prioritizes transparency and accountability, allowing LG Electronics to address the issue internally and take corrective action before it potentially impacts consumers or regulatory bodies. This aligns with general ethical guidelines for business conduct and audit standards that mandate reporting of material misstatements. An incorrect approach would be to overlook or downplay the discrepancies to avoid conflict or negative repercussions for LG Electronics. This fails to meet the auditor's professional responsibility to report factual findings. Another incorrect approach would be to immediately disclose the findings externally without first attempting to resolve them internally through established company procedures. This could be seen as a breach of confidentiality and could unnecessarily damage the company's reputation if the issue is a misunderstanding or can be rectified internally. A third incorrect approach would be to accept the sales team's explanation without further independent verification. thereby failing to exercise due professional care and skepticism. Professionals should use a decision-making framework that begins with identifying the ethical and regulatory implications of the situation. They should then consult relevant company policies and professional codes of conduct. The next step is to gather all relevant facts and evidence. Finally, they should choose the course of action that best upholds integrity, objectivity, and compliance, prioritizing transparency and accountability while respecting established reporting channels. Question 11. When evaluating a situation where an LG Electronics employee, during the hiring assessment process, inadvertently discovers sensitive, non-public information that could significantly impact their personal financial investments, what is the most ethically and professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Ignore the information and proceed with the hiring assessment as if it were never discovered, hoping it does not become relevant later. Option B. Discuss the discovered information with trusted friends or family members to seek advice on how to proceed, without directly informing LG Electronics. Option C. Use the discovered information to make immediate personal financial investment decisions before reporting it to LG Electronics. Option D. Immediately report the discovered information to their direct supervisor or the designated compliance officer within LG Electronics, without taking any personal action based on the information. Correct answer is D. Immediately report the discovered information to their direct supervisor or the designated compliance officer within LG Electronics, without taking any personal action based on the information. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for an LG Electronics employee due to the potential conflict between personal gain and the company's ethical standards and regulatory obligations. The employee has discovered information that could benefit them financially, but also potentially harm the company's reputation or competitive standing if misused. Careful judgment is required to navigate this situation ethically and legally, ensuring compliance with LG Electronics' internal policies and relevant hiring assessment test guidelines. The correct approach involves immediately disclosing the information to the appropriate internal channels within LG Electronics, such as a supervisor or the compliance department, without taking any personal action based on the information. This upholds the principle of loyalty to the employer and adheres to the ethical expectation that employees act in the best interest of the company. Specifically, this aligns with typical corporate codes of conduct that mandate reporting of potential conflicts of interest and insider information, preventing its exploitation for personal advantage. This proactive disclosure allows LG Electronics to manage the situation appropriately, mitigating any potential risks and ensuring fair market practices. An incorrect approach would be to use the information for personal financial gain before reporting it. This constitutes a breach of trust and potentially violates laws related to insider trading or unfair competition, depending on the nature of the information and the specific jurisdiction's regulations applicable to the LG Electronics hiring assessment test. Such an action prioritizes personal benefit over professional integrity and the company's well-being, leading to severe disciplinary action and legal repercussions. Another incorrect approach is to remain silent and do nothing, hoping the situation resolves itself or that the information becomes irrelevant. This inaction is also a failure to act ethically and responsibly. By not reporting, the employee allows a potential risk to persist, which could still negatively impact LG Electronics. This passive stance can be interpreted as complicity or a disregard for the employee's duty of care to their employer. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the company's code of conduct and ethical guidelines. When faced with a potential conflict of interest or sensitive information, the first step should always be to identify the relevant internal reporting procedures. The employee should then promptly and transparently report the situation to the designated authority, seeking guidance on how to proceed. This ensures that any actions taken are in full compliance with ethical standards and company policy, protecting both the individual and the organization. Question 12. Benchmark analysis indicates that LG Electronics customer service response times have been increasing, impacting customer satisfaction. A new initiative aims to optimize the process for handling customer inquiries to reduce these response times. Which of the following approaches best aligns with a responsible and effective process optimization strategy within the context of the LG Electronics hiring assessment test? Option A. Immediately implement a new, faster ticketing system based on industry trends. assuming it will inherently reduce response times without detailed analysis of existing issues. Option B. Introduce a policy that limits the duration of customer interactions to enforce faster resolution, regardless of the complexity of the customer's issue. Option C. Rely on the personal experience of the longest-serving customer service representatives to identify areas for improvement, prioritizing changes that are easiest to implement quickly. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive review of current customer service workflows. Gather data on inquiry types and resolution times. Identify key bottlenecks through root cause analysis, and propose data-driven solutions with measurable success metrics, ensuring all proposed changes are aligned with LG Electronics operational standards. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive review of current customer service workflows, gather data on inquiry types and resolution times, identify key bottlenecks through root cause analysis, and propose data-driven solutions with measurable success metrics, ensuring all proposed changes are aligned with LG Electronics operational standards. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for LG Electronics hiring assessment test candidates by requiring them to apply process optimization principles within a hypothetical, yet realistic, business context. The challenge lies in identifying the most effective and compliant approach to improving operational efficiency while adhering to the specific regulatory framework of the LG Electronics hiring assessment test. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between approaches that offer genuine improvement and those that might inadvertently lead to compliance issues or ethical breaches. The correct approach involves a systematic and data-driven method for process optimization that prioritizes understanding current workflows, identifying bottlenecks through objective analysis, and implementing changes with clear metrics for success, all while ensuring adherence to the LG Electronics hiring assessment test's implicit guidelines for ethical business conduct and operational integrity. This approach is right because it aligns with best practices in process improvement, emphasizing thorough analysis before action, stakeholder involvement, and measurable outcomes. It implicitly respects the spirit of the assessment by demonstrating a responsible and strategic mindset. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on rapid implementation, without adequate analysis, risks introducing errors or inefficiencies that could negatively impact LG Electronics operations or reputation. This could lead to regulatory noncompliance if the implemented changes violate any unstated but implied operational standards or ethical guidelines within the assessment's framework. Another incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or personal opinions rather than objective data fails to provide a robust foundation for process improvement. This can result in suboptimal outcomes and a lack of accountability, as decisions are not grounded in verifiable facts, potentially contravening the assessment's expectation of analytical rigor. A third incorrect approach that bypasses established procedures or necessary approvals for the sake of speed could lead to significant compliance risks and a breakdown of internal controls, demonstrating a disregard for the structured environment the assessment aims to evaluate. Professionals should approach such situations by first thoroughly understanding the objectives and constraints of the task, including any implicit regulatory or ethical considerations. They should then gather and analyze relevant data to identify root causes of inefficiencies. Next, they should develop and evaluate potential solutions, considering their feasibility, impact, and compliance with established guidelines. Finally, they should implement the chosen solution in a controlled manner, monitor its effectiveness, and be prepared to iterate based on performance data and feedback. Question 13. Analysis of process optimization initiatives at LG Electronics reveals a potential conflict between accelerating product development cycles and ensuring robust data privacy safeguards for consumer information collected during product usage. Which of the following approaches best balances these competing demands while adhering to LG Electronics' commitment to ethical business practices and relevant consumer protection regulations? Option A. Conducting a thorough risk assessment of all proposed process changes, ensuring that data minimization, purpose limitation, and security measures are integrated from the design phase, and obtaining necessary internal approvals before implementation. Option B. Implementing process changes that prioritize the fastest data collection and analysis methods with a post-implementation review for privacy compliance. Option C. Expediting process changes by relying on existing, unverified data handling protocols, assuming they meet current regulatory standards. Option D, focusing on reducing the volume of consumer data collected to expedite processing, even if it means losing valuable insights for product improvement. Correct answer is B, implementing process changes that prioritize the fastest data collection and analysis methods, with a post-implementation review for privacy compliance. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for LG Electronics employees involved in process optimization due to the inherent tension between achieving efficiency gains and maintaining compliance with regulatory frameworks. The need to balance speed and cost reduction with the ethical imperative of responsible data handling and consumer protection requires careful judgment. The correct approach involves a systematic review of existing processes, identifying bottlenecks, and proposing improvements that are not only efficient, but also demonstrably compliant with all applicable LG Electronics internal policies and relevant consumer protection laws. This approach is correct because it prioritizes a holistic view of process optimization, ensuring that efficiency gains do not come at the expense of legal or ethical standards. Specifically, it aligns with the principles of responsible business conduct and data privacy regulations that mandate secure and transparent data processing, preventing potential breaches or misuse of consumer information. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without considering data security implications would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for data privacy laws and LG Electronics' own internal data governance policies, which could lead to significant legal penalties, reputational damage, and loss of consumer trust. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of implementation over thorough risk assessment would also be professionally unacceptable. This oversight neglects the potential for unintended consequences, such as introducing vulnerabilities in systems or processes that handle sensitive customer data, thereby violating principles of due diligence and risk management mandated by regulatory bodies and internal compliance frameworks. A third incorrect approach that involves bypassing established approval channels for process changes, even if seemingly efficient, would be professionally unacceptable. This action undermines the internal control environment and governance structures designed to ensure compliance and mitigate risks, potentially leading to the adoption of non-compliant or insecure processes. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, thoroughly understand the existing process and its objectives. Second, identify potential areas for optimization. Third, critically evaluate proposed changes against all relevant internal policies, ethical guidelines, and external regulations, paying particular attention to data privacy, security, and consumer rights. Fourth, conduct a comprehensive risk assessment for each proposed change. And finally, seek appropriate internal approvals and validation before implementation. Question 14. The efficiency study reveals that the current LG Electronics hiring assessment test process for evaluating technical aptitude is time-consuming for both candidates and evaluators. To streamline this, which of the following optimization strategies would best align with the principles of a fair and valid hiring assessment? Option A. Redesigning assessment tasks to be shorter and simpler, even if this means omitting some complex problem-solving elements that are critical for the role. Option B. Introducing a new, untested assessment module that promises faster completion, but has not undergone any validation for its ability to predict job performance. Option C. Implementing an AI-powered scoring system that significantly reduces manual review time, without prior validation against human expert scoring for accuracy and bias. Option D. Conducting a thorough review of the existing assessment content and scoring rubrics to identify opportunities for clearer instructions, more efficient question formats, and automated preliminary screening of objective components, while ensuring all changes are piloted and validated for psychometric soundness and fairness. The correct answer is C. Implementing an AI-powered scoring system that significantly reduces manual review time, without prior validation against human expert scoring for accuracy and bias. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for LG Electronics' process optimization team by requiring them to balance the pursuit of efficiency gains with adherence to established regulatory frameworks and ethical considerations. The core difficulty lies in identifying and implementing process improvements that are not only cost-effective and time-saving, but also fully compliant with the LG Electronics Hiring Assessment Test specific guidelines, which are paramount for ensuring fairness, validity, and legal defensibility of the assessment process. A hasty or poorly considered optimization could inadvertently introduce bias, compromise the integrity of the assessment, or violate the principles of fair hiring. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the existing assessment process to identify bottlenecks and areas for improvement, followed by the development and implementation of changes that demonstrably enhance efficiency without negatively impacting the assessment's validity, reliability, or fairness. This approach prioritizes a systematic, data-informed, and compliant method. Specifically, any proposed changes must be evaluated against the LG Electronics Hiring Assessment Tests, stated objectives, and psychometric principles, ensuring that efficiency gains do not come at the expense of accurately measuring the required competencies or introducing discriminatory factors. This aligns with the ethical imperative to conduct hiring processes that are equitable and provide all candidates with a fair opportunity. An incorrect approach would be to prioritize speed or cost reduction above all else, without a rigorous evaluation of the impact on assessment integrity. For instance, automating scoring without validating the algorithm against human scoring and ensuring it accurately reflects the assessment criteria would be a regulatory failure. This could lead to inconsistent or biased evaluations, undermining the purpose of the assessment and potentially violating principles of equal opportunity. Another incorrect approach would be to simplify assessment tasks to reduce completion time, if these simplifications lead to a loss of critical information needed to assess essential job-related skills. This would compromise the validity of the assessment, making it an unreliable predictor of job performance and a failure to meet the assessment's intended purpose. A third incorrect approach might involve introducing new assessment methods without proper piloting or validation, risking the introduction of unknown biases or measurement errors. This disregards the need for evidence-based practices in assessment design and implementation. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the assessment's objectives and the governing regulatory framework. They should then systematically identify potential areas for optimization, followed by a rigorous analysis of the potential impact of each proposed change on validity, reliability, fairness, and compliance. Pilot testing and validation are crucial steps before full implementation. This iterative process ensures that efficiency improvements are achieved responsibly and ethically, upholding the integrity of the hiring process. Question 15. Compliance review shows that LG Electronics' recent initiative to streamline its customer service workflow has inadvertently introduced new vulnerabilities in the handling of personal customer data. The process optimization team is now tasked with re-evaluating the workflow to ensure both efficiency and data protection. Which of the following approaches best addresses this situation while adhering to data privacy regulations? Option A. Focus on accelerating the data processing speed within the new workflow, assuming that existing general security protocols will adequately protect customer information. Option B. Conduct a targeted review of the specific data points collected and processed within the new workflow, implementing granular access controls and data anonymization techniques where feasible, in consultation with the data protection officer. Option C. Implement enhanced data encryption across all customer service platforms and conduct mandatory privacy training for all customer-facing staff. Option D. Prioritize the rollback of the optimization to revert to the previous, less efficient but known secure workflow until a comprehensive data privacy impact assessment can be completed. The correct answer is C. Implement enhanced data encryption across all customer service platforms and conduct mandatory privacy training for all customer-facing staff. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for LG Electronics' process optimization team due to the inherent tension between achieving efficiency gains and maintaining compliance with data privacy regulations. The team must balance the desire to streamline operations with the absolute necessity of safeguarding sensitive customer information, as mandated by relevant data protection laws. A misstep could lead to significant legal penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. The correct approach involves a thorough, risk-based assessment of data handling procedures within the optimized processes. This means identifying all points where personal data is collected, processed, stored, and deleted, and then implementing robust security measures and privacy controls at each stage. This aligns with the principles of data minimization, purpose limitation, and security by design, which are fundamental to data protection frameworks. By proactively embedding privacy considerations into the optimization process, LG Electronics can ensure that efficiency is achieved without compromising its legal and ethical obligations to protect customer data. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on speed and cost reduction without adequate data privacy safeguards would fail to meet regulatory requirements. This could involve overlooking the need for data anonymization or pseudonymization where appropriate, or implementing new systems that do not have sufficient access controls or encryption. Such an approach would directly violate data protection principles by potentially exposing sensitive information or processing it for unauthorized purposes. Another incorrect approach might be to assume that existing, general security measures are sufficient for the newly optimized processes, without conducting a specific review of how these processes impact data handling and the associated risks. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to adapt security protocols to evolving operational needs, thereby creating vulnerabilities. Professionals tasked with process optimization must adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes compliance and ethical considerations alongside efficiency. This involves a multi-stakeholder approach, engaging legal and compliance teams early in the design phase. A risk assessment matrix should be used to identify potential data privacy risks associated with each proposed optimization. Solutions should be evaluated not only on their operational benefits, but also on their adherence to privacy by design and by default principles. Regular audits and continuous monitoring are crucial to ensure ongoing compliance as processes evolve. Question 16. Research into process optimization for LG Electronics hiring assessment test candidate onboarding has identified several potential improvements. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the strict regulatory framework and guidelines of the LG Electronics hiring assessment test? Option A. Introducing a new, informal interview stage conducted by junior team members to gather additional qualitative data not covered by the formal assessment. Option B. Developing a more streamlined digital submission process for candidate resumes that automatically flags keywords related to desired skills, thereby reducing manual review time. Option C. Implementing a system to automatically generate personalized feedback reports for all candidates based on their performance against predefined assessment criteria, ensuring consistency and reducing administrative burden. Option D. Modifying the weighting of certain assessment modules to prioritize candidates who demonstrate faster problem-solving speeds, irrespective of the depth of their solutions. The correct answer is B. Developing a more streamlined digital submission process for candidate resumes that automatically flags keywords related to desired skills, thereby reducing manual review time. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for LG Electronics employees by requiring them to balance efficiency gains with adherence to specific regulatory frameworks governing their operations. The core difficulty lies in identifying process improvements that are not only beneficial for operational streamlining, but also fully compliant with the LG Electronics hiring assessment test's stipulated regulatory environment. Careful judgment is required to avoid implementing changes that, while seemingly advantageous, could inadvertently violate these specific guidelines. The correct approach involves a thorough review of existing LG Electronics hiring assessment test regulations to identify areas where process optimization can occur without contravening any explicit or implicit rules. This means focusing on internal efficiencies, documentation, or communication protocols that are not directly governed by external laws or the specific assessment framework itself. For instance, optimizing the internal workflow for candidate feedback collection, provided it doesn't alter the assessment criteria or introduce bias, would be a compliant improvement. This approach is correct because it prioritizes regulatory adherence, a fundamental ethical and professional obligation within any hiring assessment context. It ensures that any process optimization serves to enhance efficiency without compromising the integrity or fairness of the assessment, which is paramount in maintaining trust and credibility. Implementing a process optimization that involves altering the scoring methodology of the LG Electronics hiring assessment test without explicit authorization or a clear regulatory basis would be an incorrect approach. This failure stems from a direct violation of the assessment's established framework, potentially introducing bias and undermining the validity of the results. Similarly, introducing new assessment criteria or weighting them differently based on perceived efficiency gains, without a formal review and approval process aligned with the LG Electronics Hiring Assessment Test Guidelines, is also an incorrect approach. This constitutes a regulatory failure as it deviates from the defined assessment parameters. Another incorrect approach would be to streamline candidate communication in a way that could be perceived as preferential treatment or that omits crucial information required by the assessment's guidelines, leading to an ethical failure by compromising fairness and transparency. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a comprehensive understanding of the LG Electronics Hiring Assessment Test's regulatory landscape. Any proposed process optimization should be rigorously evaluated against these specific rules. If there is any ambiguity, seeking clarification from the relevant assessment authorities or legal counsel is essential. The decision should always prioritize compliance and fairness over perceived efficiency gains, ensuring that all improvements are implemented within the defined ethical and regulatory boundaries. Question 17. The monitoring system demonstrates a consistent bottleneck in the final assembly line for LG Electronics' latest smart television model, leading to delays in fulfilling customer orders. A proposal suggests streamlining the quality inspection phase by reducing the number of diagnostic checks performed on each unit, with the stated aim of increasing throughput. What is the most professionally responsible approach for LG Electronics to address this bottleneck? Option A. Immediately implement the proposed streamlining of the quality inspection phase to expedite order fulfillment and reduce lead times. Option B. Reallocate resources from other departments to temporarily boost the capacity of the final assembly line without altering the existing inspection protocols. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive root cause analysis of the bottleneck. Explore alternative process improvements that do not compromise quality, and perform a pilot test of any proposed changes to assess their impact on both efficiency and product reliability for full-scale implementation. Option D. Focus solely on increasing the speed of the inspection personnel without modifying the diagnostic checks themselves, assuming this will resolve the bottleneck. Correct answer is A. Immediately implement the proposed streamlining of the quality inspection phase to expedite order fulfillment and reduce lead times. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for LG Electronics employees involved in process optimization due to the inherent tension between efficiency gains and the potential for unintended consequences that could impact product quality, customer satisfaction, or regulatory compliance. Careful judgment is required to balance these competing interests. The correct approach involves a systematic evaluation of proposed process changes, prioritizing data-driven insights, and a thorough risk assessment before implementation. This ensures that any optimization efforts are aligned with LG Electronics' commitment to quality, customer trust, and adherence to relevant industry standards and regulations. Specifically, this approach would involve a pilot testing phase to validate the effectiveness and safety of the optimized process in a controlled environment, gathering feedback from relevant stakeholders, and ensuring that all changes are documented and reviewed against established quality management systems and any applicable LG Electronics internal policies or industry best practices. This methodical process minimizes the risk of introducing defects or non-compliance. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate cost reduction without considering the impact on product reliability or customer experience would be professionally unacceptable. This could lead to increased warranty claims, damage to LG Electronics' brand reputation, and potential violations of consumer protection laws if product performance is significantly degraded. Another incorrect approach that bypasses established quality control checkpoints or documentation procedures to expedite implementation would also be a failure. This not only increases the risk of undetected errors, but also undermines the integrity of LG Electronics' quality management system and could lead to non-compliance with internal audit requirements or external regulatory oversight. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with clearly defining the objectives of process optimization, followed by identifying potential risks and benefits. This framework should include a robust change management process, stakeholder consultation, and a commitment to continuous improvement based on feedback and performance monitoring. Prioritizing ethical considerations and regulatory compliance alongside efficiency is paramount. Question 18. Comparative studies suggest that LG Electronics can significantly enhance its manufacturing process efficiency through advanced data analytics. However, the implementation of these analytics involves processing customer interaction data collected during product usage. Which of the following approaches best balances the pursuit of process optimization with ethical data handling and regulatory compliance for LG Electronics? Option A. Utilize customer interaction data for process optimization based on LG Electronics' internal interpretation of data privacy policies, without seeking external legal review or customer consent. Option B. Implement advanced analytics using all available customer interaction data to identify optimization opportunities, assuming implicit consent for data usage in product improvement. Option C. Delay the implementation of advanced analytics until all potential regulatory interpretations regarding customer data usage are definitively clarified by global regulatory bodies. Option D. Prioritize the anonymization of customer interaction data before analysis and seek explicit customer consent for any use of identifiable data in process optimization initiatives. The correct answer is B. Implement advanced analytics using all available customer interaction data to identify optimization opportunities, assuming implicit consent for data usage in product improvement. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge for LG Electronics' process optimization team by requiring them to balance efficiency gains with the ethical imperative of responsible data handling and customer trust. The core tension lies in leveraging advanced analytics for process improvement without compromising privacy or transparency. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any optimization strategy aligns with both business objectives and regulatory compliance. The correct approach involves a phased implementation of process optimization, prioritizing data anonymization, and obtaining explicit customer consent for any data usage beyond core service delivery. This aligns with principles of data minimization and purpose limitation, which are fundamental in many data protection regulations. By focusing on anonymized data for initial analysis and seeking consent for more granular insights, LG Electronics demonstrates a commitment to ethical data stewardship and builds trust with its customers. This proactive stance minimizes the risk of regulatory breaches and reputational damage. An approach that focuses solely on maximizing data collection for immediate insights without considering anonymization or consent is ethically flawed and carries significant regulatory risk. Such a strategy could violate data privacy laws by collecting and processing personal data without a legitimate basis or adequate safeguards. Another incorrect approach, which involves delaying optimization efforts until all potential regulatory ambiguities are resolved, is professionally inefficient and misses opportunities for improvement. While caution is important, an overly cautious stance can stifle innovation and hinder competitive advantage. Finally, an approach that relies on internal interpretations of data usage policies without seeking external legal counsel or conducting thorough impact assessments is also problematic. This can lead to misinterpretations of regulations and unintentional noncompliance. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the relevant regulatory landscape. This should be followed by a risk assessment of proposed optimization strategies, considering both potential benefits and ethical/legal implications. Engaging legal and compliance teams early in the process is crucial. Furthermore, a commitment to transparency with customers regarding data usage and a willingness to adapt strategies based on evolving regulations and ethical considerations are hallmarks of sound professional judgment in process optimization. Question 19. Strategic planning requires LG Electronics to implement process optimization initiatives across its manufacturing and supply chain operations. Which of the following approaches best ensures that these initiatives are both effective and compliant with all relevant regulatory frameworks and ethical guidelines? Option A. Focus on rapid implementation of optimization changes to gain a competitive advantage, deferring detailed regulatory and ethical reviews until after the changes are in effect. Option B. Prioritize the most cost-effective optimization solutions, assuming that regulatory compliance will be addressed as a secondary concern during implementation. Option C. Conduct a thorough review of all applicable regulatory requirements and ethical standards, integrating them into the design and evaluation of optimization strategies from the outset. Option D. Delegate optimization decision-making to individual department heads, trusting their judgment to identify and implement efficient processes without extensive oversight. The correct answer is B. Prioritize the most cost-effective optimization solutions, assuming that regulatory compliance will be addressed as a secondary concern during implementation. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge for LG Electronics' management team as they navigate the implementation of process optimization initiatives. The core difficulty lies in balancing the pursuit of efficiency gains with the imperative to adhere to all applicable regulatory frameworks and ethical guidelines governing business operations. A misstep in this area could lead to significant legal repercussions, reputational damage, and erosion of stakeholder trust. Careful judgment is required to ensure that optimization efforts do not inadvertently create compliance risks or compromise ethical standards. The correct approach involves a comprehensive review and integration of all relevant regulatory requirements and ethical considerations into the process optimization strategy from its inception. This proactive stance ensures that efficiency improvements are achieved within legal and ethical boundaries. Specifically, this approach aligns with the principles of responsible corporate governance, which mandate that companies operate in a manner that respects the law and upholds ethical conduct. By embedding compliance and ethical checks into the optimization process, LG Electronics demonstrates a commitment to sustainable and trustworthy business practices, thereby mitigating risks and fostering a positive corporate image. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without considering regulatory implications could lead to violations of data privacy laws, environmental regulations, or labor standards, depending on the nature of the optimization. For instance, streamlining operations by reducing quality control checks might violate product safety regulations. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of implementation over thorough risk assessment could overlook potential ethical breaches, such as unfair labor practices or misleading marketing claims, which would undermine the company's integrity and potentially lead to severe penalties. A third incorrect approach that delegates optimization decisions without adequate oversight or training on regulatory compliance could result in unintentional noncompliance, as employees may not be aware of or equipped to handle the legal and ethical nuances of their actions. Professionals tasked with process optimization should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the operational objectives and then systematically overlays all applicable legal and ethical constraints. This involves consulting legal and compliance departments, conducting impact assessments, and prioritizing solutions that are both efficient and compliant. Continuous monitoring and review are also crucial to adapt to evolving regulatory landscapes and maintain ethical standards throughout the optimization lifecycle. Question 20. Regulatory review indicates that LG Electronics is considering a new automated customer service system to optimize response times and reduce operational costs. This system will involve collecting and processing customer data. Which of the following approaches best ensures that this process optimization adheres to LG Electronics' primary regulatory framework, which emphasizes data privacy and consumer protection? Option A. Implement the automated system immediately to capture efficiency gains and address any potential regulatory issues retrospectively. Option B. Design the automated system with a primary focus on cost reduction and speed, assuming that existing general compliance measures will cover any regulatory requirements. Option C. Rely on the IT department's interpretation of general data, handling best practices to guide the system's development, without specific consultation with legal or compliance teams. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive regulatory impact assessment to identify all applicable data privacy and consumer protection laws before finalizing the system's design, and build compliance directly into the process. The correct answer is A. Implement the automated system immediately to capture efficiency gains and address any potential regulatory issues retrospectively. Explanation: This scenario presents a professional challenge for LG Electronics' compliance team as they navigate the implementation of a new process optimization initiative. The core challenge lies in balancing the drive for efficiency and cost reduction with the absolute imperative to adhere to the specific regulatory framework governing LG Electronics' operations within its primary jurisdiction. Misinterpreting or overlooking these regulations during process design can lead to significant legal repercussions, reputational damage, and operational disruptions. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any optimization efforts are not only effective, but also fully compliant. The correct approach involves a proactive and thorough regulatory impact assessment integrated into the early stages of process design. This means identifying all relevant laws, regulations, and internal guidelines that the proposed optimization might affect, and then designing the new process to explicitly meet these requirements. This approach ensures that LG Electronics operates within legal boundaries, avoids potential penalties, and maintains its ethical commitment to compliance. It demonstrates a commitment to responsible business practices and risk mitigation. An incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of implementation over regulatory due diligence would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for the legal obligations of LG Electronics, potentially leading to noncompliance with specific industry standards or data privacy laws, depending on the nature of the optimization. Another incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost savings without considering the regulatory implications of data handling or customer interaction would also be flawed. This oversight could result in breaches of consumer protection regulations or unfair business practices, exposing LG Electronics to significant liabilities. A third incorrect approach that relies on assumptions about regulatory compliance without concrete verification would be equally problematic, as it introduces a high degree of risk and could lead to unintentional violations. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a comprehensive understanding of the applicable regulatory landscape. This involves consulting legal and compliance experts, conducting detailed risk assessments, and embedding compliance checks throughout the process design and implementation lifecycle. Prioritizing regulatory adherence ensures that efficiency gains are sustainable and do not come at the cost of legal or ethical integrity.